Second race weekend of the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. We're in Winterberg in Germany, and it is a cold and damp Saturday afternoon. Hello everybody, welcome wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me, skeleton athlete Elizabeth Meyer, who competed on the track yesterday. And Elizabeth, Winterberg living up to its reputation as being a very tight race with a few hundreds between our competitors.
Definitely. Alana Myers-Taylor is only 1,700ths out of that top spot. She's a beast on the start. She's so strong and so powerful, and if she's able to push that down to the bottom of the track, she'll be definitely fighting for that top spot. She had a couple of skids and a little bit mistakes. If she's able to clean that up, she will be just up there. She's no stranger to the podium here in Winterberg, Germany, and she's been on it, I think, 5 times in the last 5 years. In second place is Stephanie Schneider. She is the World Cup winner here last year. She's fighting her teammate who's sitting in first place. She had a couple big skids as well in the bottom of the track, so it could be a very tight battle for these top 3 girls. Only 800ths away from that top spot. And in first is Mariana Jumenka, who is the Olympic champion. She won her first World Cup race just last week. She's got Annika Drasdik on the back of her sled, who's not been off the podium in the last 4 or 5 years. She's been in many different sleds, but she's no stranger to the podium here in Winterberg, Germany.
So it's a tight battle all the way up and down the order, and it will be a final goodbye as well to one of our sliders who is having her last ever trip in a sled. But there's the top 3 covered by 1,700s. Anna Kola in 4th, probably out of it. But look, Nadezhda Sergeyeva right behind her, just 500s away, and another 600s back is 6th, and then another 400s back is 7th, and so on. And that's the nature of this Winterberg track. We get a lot of dead heats. So what about this track? Where are the key areas? I mean, for most young athletes, it's a well-known track. There are a lot of youngsters come here to learn how to slide.
Definitely. Winterberg is very start dependent for the first part of the track. So you're trying to push as fast as you can, have you and your brakeman hit the sled perfectly, hop in, get ready for corner 0. Winterberg's unique in that it does have a corner 0, and now we're heading into corner 1. It's really not much of a drop in these top few corners. Some uphill sections. Corner 2 is big and slow into a quick corner 3 and corner 4 that are a little bit uphill, and it's not dropping like many other tracks that we hit on tour. Corner 5 is a big curve, which sets us up for corner 6 into Kreisel, which is corner 7. Kreisel were created to slow sleds down so that you didn't get as much speed at the bottom of a track. Into curve 8, and this is where it starts to get a bit trickier for bobsled. Big corner 9, and then we have a blip just at the end, which is corner 10, that pushes you into 11. Lots of sleds get tons of height on the exit 11, perhaps a little bit of tap into 12 and 13. And in 14 is a big uphill section, which we've seen a couple sleds take a little bit of a tap. Exit of 14 is tricky. You might take a victory roll, but perhaps that's the fastest line.
Well, the victory roll, we've seen races won or lost on the final corner in lots of tracks, but here, rolling off the final corner with maximum speed is kind of an acknowledged way of finishing the race. There's Mariana Jumenka just catching up with a little bit of real life outside the bobsleigh bubble. Ice, temperature -2 or 3 degrees, and the control steel, all runners are measured against a control steel that hangs in the fresh air up at the start in the shade to make sure that they're not overheated. The warmer the runner is, the quicker it melts the ice underneath it, and the slicker the track becomes effectively.
Yeah, definitely. So those runners have to be within a certain amount of temperature difference for it to be legal.
Final race of their careers for Belgium's Elfie Willemsen and Hannah Marion, who competed together and finished in 6th place in the Winter Games in 2014. And they started and began their and finished their Belgian bobsleigh episodes here. And they will be first off. Our Olympic champion and first round leader Mariana Jumenka will be the last to go. Lots of Belgian support here, only a couple of hours from the Low Countries for Elfie Willemsen and Hannah Marion. Final slide of Elfie's career. She's already begun her new Elfie life. Elfie the coach, and this is the last time in a bobsled.
You can hear the massive cheers at the start line, and she's been really a staple in this Belgium team. She's had an incredible career, 3 Olympic Games, and she's been an amazing person to have around the track. And I'm very thankful for the career that she's had and kind of kick-starting that Belgian Bullets era.
They finished in 6th place in Sochi, and Hannah Marion was an Olympic champion in the 4x100 in Beijing 2008. And little rocky run down here. Alfie hasn't driven a sled since last year. Hannah hadn't pushed for 5 years before a couple of weeks ago. She took one practice run down here.
Yeah, and Alfie had invited her to come back to do this final run with her. And it was their team for Sochi where she had such a great result. And it is really incredible for them to be able to finish their career together.
Alfie was telling me the other day she was quite nervous about this. Will I still remember how to get down 2 corners? And she was going, oh yeah, I've got that.
And there she is. She's Queenie. She has run Belgian bobsledders and been the head of it for so long, and it's really an incredible way to end her career.
Yeah. Well, she's been the figurehead for Belgian bobsled, and Hannah Marion also the head of the federation for the last few years, so they put so much into this. And Alfie now moves on to a new role within the IBSF, the Bobsleigh and Skeleton Federation, as a coach for young sliders, and particularly in the new monobob format that is coming up in the next games in Beijing. So
lots of smiles, lots of friends and family at the track to say final farewell to Alfie and her sliding career.
And a big smile on her face. That's going to take a day or two to wipe off. She's going to have a party tonight for all her family and friends in town. I think that's an open secret. And for Hannah Marion and Alfie Willemsen,
big hugs, big smiles.
Home track definitely for the Belgians, as for the Dutch here. Well, next up, my broadcast partner for this afternoon's 4-man bobsled race. But first, she's got the small task of getting her sled safely down and trying for a top 10 spot. Brittany Reinbold from the USA with Lauren Gibbs behind her, horsing it off the top of the track.
Lauren Gibbs is a silver medalist from Pyeongchang, so she's a very great brakeman. She understands what it is to push a sled. This is a somewhat new track to Brittany. She's only been here a couple of times, which happens a lot for North American athletes. We don't really get over to Europe as much as the other athletes.
Exactly right, and Europeans tend to be a little less familiar with the North American tracks until well into their career, just because of the distance.
And traveling with a bobsled is not so easy.
Apparently not. Can't put it in the overhead lockers, I hear.
No, it doesn't fit so well.
All right, so nice looking run here. She's a second up on Alfie Willemsen, but actually her target is going to be coming down next. They go in reverse order in the second heat in all of our races. Avoids the tap, but still has a little skid there.
Yeah, this is a much nicer run than her first run. She has great control here. There's a lot less taps and skids that we witnessed on her first run. Maybe just getting the feel of it just a little bit more.
Yeah. Crosses the line, completes her 3rd ever race here. 57.47, 2200s faster. And there you saw the Belgians in the leaders box for the very final time. And who knows, maybe yet another generation of Belgian ice sliding we saw there in the picture as well.
Yeah, nice big hug from the two of them.
Well, into the leaders box go the USA's Brittany Reinbold and Lauren Gibbs.
You can see her just pop off of corner 10 nice and early, just a bit of a skid, but she's able to control it too well, doesn't have too much height on the exit, keeps the runners going as straight as possible. You can see her head lean into the right as she heads into the next curve.
Hey everyone, she's the champion here.
We know for younger drivers like Brittany Reinbold and for Martina Fonteneva, you know, Alfie Willemsen was one of the women who've been around ever since they started in the sport, and probably since long before. So yeah, they know her well. Next up then is Martina Fonteneva of Switzerland. Martina in 10th place after the first heat, gets a little tap away as she comes off corner 0, and that really is just like putting the foot brake on.
Definitely. She had a similar issue in corner 0 on the first run. It's a tricky little corner that can really send you off, and you lose a bit of your velocity that's coming off the start, which is so integral for Winterberg. She's able to keep her runners straight, though, as she's heading in this top part of the track to try to regain acceleration. Little tap into Kreisel, tiny bit of a little bit more of a loop than we've seen with the other girls, but perhaps she's just trying to let it flow as much as possible to regain that speed.
She was only 600s ahead of Brittany Reinbold from the first heat, 1100s up now, but one tiny error could erase all of that.
And she's having a nice bottom labyrinth where she's able to gain a little bit more speed. Didn't really get that tap in the entry 14 like we've been seeing.
And across the line, she has opened up the advantage. Goodbye from Brittany Reinbold and Lauren Gibbs. And into the leaders box goes Martina Fonteneva.
After a difficult week last week, I think she's going to be very pleased with the result from here. She is learning driving, much like a few of these other pilots, and she's starting to get a feel in World Cup.
Yeah. And 5:69, not a bad start either. So she and Irina Strabel have got good speed at the start.
She has a bit better load than we saw in her first run, but she gets a little bit stuck as she pops in, gets the pilot bar down. But coming into corner 0, just a little bit too much height, and then she's fighting to not hit, which instead puts her into a really big skid. Got a tiny bit of a tap into 14, lifts those back runners.
Yeah, even Winterberg can be a rocky ride for the brake woman. There's Irina on the left and Martina in the background. Now doing the heavy lifting, humping the sleds around.
Yeah, very thankful I can carry mine with one arm.
Next up is our Russian rookie, Lyubov Chernik. Last week in Sigulda made her World Cup debut. Yulia Shoksheva behind her, one of the more experienced of the female brake women in the Russian setup. A fastest start for them, 5.70 in the first heat.
Although she's a pretty new athlete, there's tons of veteran sliders in the Russian program that are able to kind of help and direct her on what a good program is for the Winterberg track.
Well, she's clearly enjoying life in the World Cup. Big smile on her face wherever you see her coming off the track.
Which is awesome to see because we do toboggan for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. 700s up over Martina Fonteneva from the first heat. She doubled that advantage out of corner 4.
Narrowly misses that tap on the exit of Kreisel that we've seen so many athletes do.
Doesn't have the speed yet that the American sled had off that fastest start so far. Brittany Reinbold and Lauren Gibbs were faster there than anybody else. She's still in the green, but the gap has come back down. She's only got her first heat advantage. What will she have at the line? Within a couple of hundreds. 600ths of a second, 57.36. 100th of a second slower than the Swiss on that run. So she holds on by 6 of the 700s that she had in hand after the first heat.
Yeah, the run did look pretty good, but she just maybe had a little bit more control, that the other girls have a little bit different setup and they can let it fly a bit more.
I wonder, as the day sort of warmed up a little from the overnight low, whether the track is a little more what they were anticipating.
Here you can see her popping in her sled, just missing that little seat so she can get her push bar in and get settled for the run. Here she is in the exit of corner 11. A little bit slower speed than the Swiss sled.
Yeah, it's one thing getting onto a skeleton on your own. It's an entirely different matter getting into a bobsled with somebody else, never mind 4 men, as we're going to be seeing this afternoon. Next up, more Belgian noise for Anne van Nieuwenhuis of Belgium with Sarah Ertz. Now they have a 10th of a second in hand over Lyubov Chernik.
Anne is coached by Tom Delahunty, the British ex-bobsledder, who also works with the Dutch team, so they've got a bit of a coaching cooperation. She comes off of 0, just a bit too much height, which pushes her into those walls.
8th place after the first heat. 9th place is her best ever World Cup result here, so on target for a PB of Belgium's home track. Gap comes down to 500ths of a second behind Lyubov Chernik.
With it being her home track, she was here a little bit earlier in the season, getting a couple runs in, getting the feel back of Winterberg.
Yeah, she took Hannah Marion down for a trip. Unfortunately, she crashed her.
Yeah, sometimes sliding doesn't go as planned.
Now, they started 900 slower than the Russians. The gap is coming right down. Are there enough meters of ice left for Anne van Nieuwenhuis to post her best ever result here in Winterberg? She's got to get in front of the Russian. 1:28 and a bit should be enough. What's she got a line? 300ths of a second. You can hear Tom Delahunty from the bottom of the track without the use of a microphone. So best ever result here in women's bobsled for Anne van Nieuwenhuis, and that will set her up nicely to call tomorrow's 4-man race.
Definitely. It's been a bit of a tricky start for Anne. She started in North America in Whistler, which is a difficult track. Doesn't have a ton of experience on, but she's really starting to excel now and get the feeling back in the sled.
Started as a brake woman for Elfie Willemsen and now inherits the mantle of Belgium's #1 bobsleigh pilot.
Here she is coming off of corner 11. She really let it fly at the bottom of the track, which got her just ahead of that Russian sled. Little bit flopping, but nice lines here. And she's smiling, so that's a plus as well.
Yes, she is. So next up is Great Britain's Misha McNeil with Montel Douglas behind her. Medalists in girls bobsleigh at the first Youth Olympic Games in 2012 in Innsbruck. The 25-year-old now from Newcastle. 4 wins in Salt Lake City and Lake Placid to start the season. This is her first World Cup start, but she won the bobsled Junior World Championships here in 2017. Montel Douglas, the British record holder, with an 11.05 100 metres.
Yeah, she's got a fast girl in the back and learning to push a bobsled as Misha's taken a year off for other brakemen to learn broadcasting.
5.78, equal to their first start, ties the Belgian sled.
The small tap off of corner 0, they really got to get their lines back to keep accelerating the sled.
Top 6, they were 400ths away from. The medals a little further away, some 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, this is a tight gap between these girls. We can see a little bit of movement up and down.
She was 10th in the World Cup here in 2016-17. Last year in the snow, only 20th place. So she's on target for her personal best here in Winterberg. 1700ths ahead of the Belgians, extending that advantage. They're looking to climb the order. The target will be Katie Beil of Austria, who comes up next. Decent looking run from Misha as well. Speed in the 129s, fastest we've seen up towards the line. What's the advantage? 2800ths. That's a good run from the British sled. Lee Johnson on the left, the head coach of British bobsledding, and also now the youth development coach, it would appear. So Misha McNeil and Montel Douglas are the leaders with half a dozen sleds remaining.
That was a very nice run by Misha. Really controlled, but still able to accelerate and get a bit of speed. Her only big issue was definitely coming out of corner 0 just after the start. Here she is in corner 11, where we've seen lots of athletes get a bit of a pickup on the end, which is happening right now, but she is able to not flop too much on the exit.
So our race leader is Misha McNeil of Great Britain, ahead of Anne van Nieuwenhuis and Lubov Chernik. We have 6 sleds to go here in Winterberg in Germany. Well, the timing system glitched halfway down that run, so we saw the time on the screen on the graphics, but on our screen in the booth we don't have the full time of that run. However, hopefully there'll be no problems with the forthcoming sled. 6 to go, 6 down, and everybody jigging about, not just because they're full of the joys of spring stroke Glühwein, but also because it's actually pretty chilly outside. It's pretty damp and cold.
Definitely, dancing helps keep you warm. So.
So I hear. It's not just for fun. So we actually have a former professional dancer in the field, in the women's bobsled. There's Misha McNeil.
Big hi to Mum back home.
Nails on point, matching, well, at least part matching this. I think we need a bit of yellow and red in there as well. So, yeah, new big sponsor for them this season with DHL on board. And that gives them that extra boost. And 4 wins to start the season, you know, you can't argue with that, can you? And of course, we go back to North America in February, so she already have mileage on those tracks.
Definitely, and it's great for experience. Because she's a European slider, she doesn't have the same track experience as she does there, but to come out with those 4 wins is probably the boost that she needed for this year. Last year was a little bit tricky and a bit discouraging, I think.
Well, and I think for the men's team as well, I think Lee Johnson is very much the opinion that give the guys confidence, guys and girls. You know, give your athletes confidence. Get them on tracks they know. Don't just throw them in the deep end constantly because, you know, struggling to swim every day gets a little wearing. So, yeah, get confidence under their belts at the beginning of the season. Let's start this Olympic cycle on a high note. And I think that's a really great way of approaching it.
Yeah, definitely. Misha's a bit of a younger pilot, so she's able to spend a little bit more time in the sport, and hopefully that confidence continues.
Exactly right. It's just what British bobsledding needs is another boost, young boost of injection, and you'll see that in the men's race coming up this afternoon as well. Winterberg in Germany, second race of the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Cup. 6 down, 6 to go. Next up is Austria's Katie Beil, and She and Jennifer Onosanya, her brakewoman, were in the top half dozen by 0.04 of a second. Current leader is Misha McNeil of Great Britain, Martin Haven and Elizabeth Meyer calling the action. You're almost teammates.
Yeah, almost teammates. We've spent a lot of time together, which has been really great getting to know Catty, and she's a big unicorn fan, side note, and her brakeman is Jenny, who is from the Netherlands originally, but she is an incredible athlete, and Catty's so happy to have her back on the sled.
Yeah, 24-year-old javelin thrower and professional dancer, Jennifer Onosanya. There's your dancer in the field. We have a dancer in women's skeleton, a former ballerina, Helena Nikitina. Here we are, two tenths up on the British sled, so this is a neat run from Catty Byle.
She has a little bit of skidding issues. She really needs to push the speed at the bottom of the track because Mika had a very nice run down here.
Yes, she did. 129s are the speeds that are required now. We saw the Austrian sled being a little loose in the first run. It gaps down to a tenth. It's going to be very close at the line, within 100th or two. 0.05 of a second in front. Well, the Brits came down 57.27. The Austrians 57.26. That's how tight this track is. And so they survive. Top half dozen.
Hey, that's an awesome result for Catty again. Sigulda was very difficult for her last week. She's learning a brand new track and took some bumps and bruises, so she can be very pleased with this top 6 result.
Well, they were 5th here last year, so that's not quite her career best, but it might be in another 2 minutes.
Definitely, there's a tight group here, so there could be some movement. She had a tiny tap entry of Kreisel. It's able to adjust in the middle of the curve.
Well, we go to her home track in third week in January, don't we, to Innsbruck in Austria. And that's why she's got good skills here, used to driving nice and quietly and trying not to disturb the sled. Top 5, Nadezhda Sergeyeva of Russia and Yulia Belomesnik. And they finished here in 17th last year, but 4th here the previous season when it wasn't snowing, so she's definitely got the potential to move up the order a little. Only 500s away from Anna Kohler in 4th.
Winterberg is notorious for having snowy races, so we're quite blessed today to have no snow on the track.
And yesterday as well, 2 days in a row. It's almost too good to believe. 5:62 getaway, fastest of the heat so far.
A little bit of a skid at the top of the track, just trying to get control of those D-rings as she heads into the first few curves.
Gap's growing, 1200s in front.
And she's putting together a really tidy run. With bobsled, the pilots have 2 D-rings that they hold on to, and they're able to steer the sled by pulling on them and letting them go back to neutral.
She too gets tapped away into the Kreisel. That means a big steer as you're taking onto the Kreisel when the pressure builds.
A lot of these athletes are taking those small taps at the entries of the corners.
British sled Misha McNeil fastest all the way down from the second timing marker right to the bottom. 129.0 is the speed to beat. What she got? Fastest of all, and 57.24. She stays in the top 5. Victoria Tokovaya on the right there, former women's bobsledder for Russia. She's now their main driving coach. And equal top speed at the bottom, 129 kilometers an hour. So Nadezhda Sergeyeva will record at least a top 5 finish here. Again, 2 seasons ago, she was in 4th place, narrowly squeezed off the podium by the Germans.
Here she is hopping into that sled, getting into that seat, as Martin had mentioned earlier, and getting ready to grab those D-rings before you hit corner 0. So you make sure you're not trying to skid too much out there.
How tight is this race? The last 3 sleds have come down within 0.03 of a second of each other. Big smile from Nadezhda. Well, next up, lots of noise from Anna Kohler's fan club at the top. Anna Kohler and Leonie Fiebig, the World Cup rookie, are locals here. Anna Kohler last year finished in 8th place. First World Cup race for Leonie Fiebig from Cologne, who's only had 2 ever races in a bobsled.
And an amazing way to have it on your home track for the World Cup.
5:62 equals the fastest start of Russian Sergeyeva, so their lead of 500s remains intact.
The depth of the German program is incredible, and you can see that having the 3 top sleds in the top 4.
Now, can she stay in front of the Russian sled? The gap is out to 800s, but Elizabeth, as you know too well, one tiny error is going to make all the difference.
Definitely a tap at an inconvenient place can really put you back, but she is accelerating here. Nice entry into corner 9. She didn't get too early like many of the other girls have done. Narrowly missed that hit, as we see many other girls do.
Good speed, but still not quite as quick as the British sled was. 800s, the gap's coming back down again. They only had 500s from the first heat. Will she be in head? Yes, finds it in the uphill final corner.
She found that German shortcut as she headed into 14.
The wormhole is there somewhere. 129.4, fastest speed of all in the FES sled. So this was always the home track for FES. Rennie Spies and FES started developing two-man sleds well over a decade ago here, and they still work well on this ice.
On her sled, she's got the Borbit logos as well as the Veltons, which are both from this area, which shows she is a hometown girl here.
And look at that, 129.5, top speed through the trap at the bottom in the Veltons seal curve.
Very nice lines here, finding those German secrets at the bottom of the track.
Well, they've got a nice little Veltons finishing arch at the bottom, but I think they need nice blue lines all the way around that final corner, make it a proper tunnel, bringing you out into the daylight. Okay, 3 sleds to go, none of whom have got a shoddy record here. Alana Myers-Taylor never off the podium in 6 World Cup starts here. She's got rookie Lake Quasar behind her, Lake making her World Cup debut here. One of a number of great women who are 25-year-old sprinter from Sycamore, Illinois. 3 North American Cup races in her career, and this is her first ever with cameras, noise, and all the World Cup trappings.
Alana and her raced on the North America's Cup in Whistler earlier this season, is preparing for the World Cup. But Alana is an incredible athlete. She's the fastest starter we've seen in this heat with a 5:53, and having a brakeman behind her that's learning is a really great opportunity for her.
Alana, 16 wins out of 30 podiums as a driver, 1 win and 3 podiums as a brakewoman, in addition to that.
A 3-time Olympic medalist, once as a brakeman and twice as a pilot.
Huge lead now over Anna Kola. So she is heading towards the podium here in Winterberg. She says this is much more her kind of track, one that's all about subtlety. She didn't particularly respond well to wrestling it down Sigulda last weekend.
She's putting together a very nice run here. She's not tapping the interior corners that we've seen in the past few sleds.
And the BMW sled, 129.9, fastest speed of all at the line. Coach Brian Scheimer applauding that, a 56.69. Again, quarter second faster than she went in the first heat, and that would have left her a 10th clear of the field in the first run. Has everybody else got that kind of a burner left in the locker?
On her first run, she was a bit skiddy in the final curve, so I think she was able to let it take a little bit more control of it, and perhaps that accelerated her a bit more. There she is on that start. She is so powerful, so strong. She's been coming back from an injury that happened just in Pyeongchang, so it's great to see her back in top form.
Well, brakewoman Lake just making sure that she didn't unsettle the sled, getting in nice and slowly, because if you kick it sideways down into 0, it does a lot more damage than sitting up in the airflow for an extra second.
Really nice entry into corner 11 there.
Yeah, that'll be one that she likes a lot. 2 to go. Alana Myers-Taylor leads. 2 German sleds remain here in Winterberg. Stephanie Schneider, last year's winner here. It was her first ever World Cup win. Can she double up? Yes, she can. She was only 800ths off the lead in the first heat.
Just a couple hundredths below Alana on that start, so it's really going to be a race to the finish for these girls.
700ths is her lead. First, she's got to beat Myers-Taylor, but she's got to lay down the sort of run that the Olympic champion, Mariama Yamanka, is going to find tough to beat.
Yes, she's fighting for that first position against one of her teammates, holding that gap on Alana Myers.
She had 900s in hand. She's got 800s at the last clock. Slender lead, but you don't get big leads very often here in Winterberg.
No, she had a little bit of tap there too, and there, which we saw in the first run, but she didn't skid.
Yeah, just about avoided the disaster. Speed at the bottom, the Americans had more. She needs 130 to guarantee the lead at the line. She's very close to it, and she has an 800s lead. 56.70, 100th slower than Alana Myers-Taylor, but she had 900s in hand, so she leads with one sled to go. Last year's winner is ahead. Last year's silver medalist is second.
We're guaranteed a German winner here today.
Well, we're very likely to have the same 3 sleds on the podium because the remaining sled finished third last year.
Gets into the sled nice and tucked, gets those hands in front of her as she's about to reach for the D-rings as she puts her push bar down. She comes into corner 11. Last run, she had a bit of skidding issues on the entry, but she was able to control it a little bit better.
Well, Stephanie Schneider and Ann-Christin Strack are absolutely pumped about that. Big start and a great run. 1 to go. And last to go is a driver who has only won 1 World Cup race in 2.5 seasons, and that is Mariama Yamanka. Oh yes, she won the Olympics, yes. But she finally broke her World Cup duck in Sigulda last week. Now that she's started winning, are they going to stop her? She's got Annika Dratsek on the back, who's not been off the podium here in 4 years either.
Fastest start this heat, really has shown up. Annika Dratsek is an amazing push athlete, and it showed that Mariama and Yamanka together, they are an incredible team. It's that depth in that German program that we see here today.
1600ths of a second ahead of her teammate Stephanie Schneider. That's double her first round advantage.
Winterberg's a bit of a longer track, so she's really got to push that advantage down to the bottom. Tiny tap on the entry of Kreisel. Annika Dratsek has been very, very successful here in the past, not being off the podium in a long time.
Oh, big skid. Big skid for Mariama Yamanka. She's got a big lead, down to 300ths of a second though. Speed at the bottom will count for everything. Schneider or Yamanka will be in a German win, and it is Schneider! She does it again, Mariama Yamanka. That big skid just cost her. She takes the silver medal, and in bronze is Alana Myers-Taylor. Stephanie Schneider does it again. Ann-Christin Strack behind her. Victory for Germany and Doppelsieg for Deutschland, because Mariama Yamanka takes the silver by just a whisker. 700ths of a second behind at the line.
And it all came down to that final curve. That small skid just really got her there.
Yeah. This track does not forgive slides.
With the fastest start of the day, popping into that sled really good. Annika Dratsek's a very experienced brakeman. Just a little bit of a flop off of corner 9 into 10 there, and there's that big skid in corner 11 that cost her.
Well, she will win again. There's no question that Yamanka has got more than enough talent to do that. And Stephanie Schneider just said, oh, okay, sorry about that. Well, there you go. Both of them on the podium. Anna Köhler of Germany finishing in 4th. Alana Myers-Taylor in 3rd place. The podium remains the same as it was last year, just in different positions. Stephanie Schneider wins here in Winterberg, the 2nd stop on the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Cup Tour. And we head into our Christmas break with 2 German athletes having won races this season. Well, she tidied up the little skids that cost her the lead in the first heat, and Mariama Yamanka allowed them to creep in, and there's the tiny differences, Elizabeth, same as in the skeleton race, how close it is.
So close, 700s, 800s behind. That's nothing. That's a blink of an eye. It's an eyelash. Schneider, like you said, cleaned up her first run, and that's where she was able to get Yamanka just at the bottom of the track.
And Myers-Taylor, 100th away from the silver medal in bronze. 8/10ths back to Anna Köhler. Now, Jesta Sergeva finishing in 5th, ahead of Kati Bile, just 700ths away from her. Then Misha McNeil, 7th, Anna Nieuwenhuis and Lubov Chernik, 300ths apart, 8th and 9th. Martina Fonteneva finishing in 10th, ahead of Brittany Reinbold and Hannah Marian and Elfia Willemsen Well, the final ever slide for Elfie Willemsen and Hannah Marion. The result they're not worried about at all. You know, they're both out of training and haven't competed for a little bit or quite a long while in Hannah Marion's case, but it was about one last run for the fans, for the friends and family, and just a final goodbye. You know, last handshake and a great chance for them to just enjoy one final weekend of sliding. And Mariama Yamanka and Annika Dracek on the podium again, and I'm sure we'll see Yamanka winning more races during the course of the year, but the three German drivers all more than capable of winning here.
Yeah, definitely, especially on a German track. They've had so much experience. They've been driving here for whoever knows how long, but they've had more runs than anybody here.
Yeah, and I think they've got a fine young circle of talent there, and there are more waiting in the wings in the junior ranks as well. Lana Myers-Taylor there on the right, on the podium again.
Yeah, her and Annika Dracek don't stop their continued podium here.
Even here in Winterberg, same as Sigulda, the cream rises to the top. You tend to get a lot of familiar faces, and particularly newcomers finding it a little harder to get in here because it is a track that requires such precision. There's Brittany Reinbold on the right and Katy Bile, and Brittany will be calling the four-man race this afternoon. Double four-man duty this weekend in Winterberg. We did double two-man a week ago in Sigulda in Latvia, so the big beasts are on track. Talking of which, by the way, Das Beast, I hear that Franz Sagmeister is here in the crowd, Rennie Spiess's long-time brakeman. Haven't seen him yet. The big shadow hasn't fallen across me, but great to hear that he is back again. Rennie Spiess, of course, coaching the German bobsled team, so he'll be very happy with this morning's performance. First, second and fourth. Tough to argue with that. Big smiles from our Russian athletes as well here in Winterberg. Second stop on the BMW IBSF Women's Bobsleigh World Cup Tour, and Mariama Yamanka, the Olympic champion, leads the standings from Russia's Nadezhda Sergeeva. Anna Kohler of Germany in third, a whisker ahead of today's winner, Stephanie Schneider. And those are the other point scorers so far this season in what is a brief pre-Christmas sojourn of just 2 race weekends. Sigulda last week, Winterberg this week. We hit the ground running first week of January, a run of 4 European races in Austria, Switzerland and Germany. But before we get to that, chance Elizabeth Meyer to watch Stephanie Schneider and Ann-Kristen Strack winning here in Winterberg.
Anja Schneider she had a great run today. She didn't have the best bottom on the first run, and she was able to clean it up a ton on the second, which accelerated her to just edge out her teammate, Mariama Yamanka. And she is, again, a winner here in Winterberg, as she did last year.
You can get away with a tiny error here. 2, maybe 3. Nah, that's too many. You know, one and done, I think. Well, there's the view around Winterberg, colloquially known as the Dutch Alps, because come the Christmas break and into January, February, this will be the ski centre for the Low Countries. That's why the snow blowers are on so much at the moment. A little bit of snow in the last week or 10 days, but they want to make sure that there is plenty for the Christmas break, which is fast rushing up upon us. 10 days till Santa starts loading the sleigh. Can't believe it. Well, we'll be doing lots more loading of sleighs this afternoon. See what I did there?
Good one.
Okay. I'll get my coat. As we get into the 4-man race, we have a big field of 4-man sleds coming down this afternoon, so plenty of action there. 4 men will be on ice from 3 o'clock this afternoon local time, 1400 Greenwich Mean Time. But first, a chance to see lots of blue and yellow on the podium. And there on the far left is Lake Quaza, our World Cup rookie brakewoman. Third place with Alana Myers-Taylor. The head of the Belgian Bobsled Federation, Stefan Freeling, presents the flowers. He also an official for the IBSF. Second place for Annie Dracek and Mariama Yamanka. And our race winners, Stephanie Schneider and Ann-Kristen Strack.
Representing Germany, Stephanie Schneider and Ann-Kristen Strack.
I said that. So there you go, there is our podium. They head to the break with a late or an early Christmas present from Stephanie Schneider. My thanks to Elizabeth Meyer for her words of wisdom. Thanks to you for joining us as well. We'll be back later on this afternoon with all the action that's fit to show from the four-man bobsleigh race here in Winterberg, Germany, and more four-man coming up tomorrow. And Elfie, thanks for the memories. It's been a blast. We'll see you again soon. Until then, from Winterberg in Germany, from us, it's Auf Wiedersehen and goodbye.